Hello and welcome to the Man Games. This is the podcast show. It is the Man
And the wife.
podcast. Today we are talking about the dark side of the ring, the final days of Owen Hart. We have just watched the episode, so yeah, this is the first time we're actually talking to each other about it. So what did you think about the episode?
I found it just to be one, deeply disturbing, and two, just so emotional. Um, Now, I can remember the first time you actually told me about Owen Hart and the situation and the accident that happened. I was like, I almost didn't believe you. Um, I couldn't believe that someone had actually died on live TV in a wrestling show. It was something really shocking. And then watching this show tonight, it's just been heartbreaking. Really, really heartbreaking.
Yeah, so the first time I saw Owen Hart was I had a SummerSlam DVD, video VHS back in the day. The first time I saw Owen Hart, it was watched him and Bret Hart in the steel cage match. And then one night, must have been a Monday night because obviously this will happen on a Sunday. I was just sat playing. I think on like one of the first PCs I think we had in our sitting room, and a friend of my stepdad's came in and said, "Oh, have you heard about Owen Hart?" I was like, "Owen Hart? That's Brett's brother, in it." And he was like, "Yeah, he died." And I was like, "What do you mean he died?" Like he was like, "Oh, he fell from the rafters." It's just yeah, like I mean, like, I can't have been very old, and it's just it was like even then it was like really like shocking for being so young to realize that like this could happen. And then obviously like my favorite wrestler is Sting, and like look what this was. So I'm not really thought about this before, but they do actually say in the show that they had him doing this to kind of take a jab at WCW and Sting doing it.
Yeah.
Which I'd never really thought about. It was them doing it as a shot at WCW, and it's like if Owen died to take a jab at another company, it's just silly.
It is. So obviously at the beginning of the episode, they start off with sort of like, I guess you could say, the facts. So as in saying it was in it was May 23rd, 1999, at the pay per view
Over the edge.
Over the Edge. Sorry, yeah, the pay per view Over the Edge. Um, that the accident happened, and they sort of go back and look through um, Owen as a kid, and they say he's the youngest of 12, so obviously he came from a massive family, and just sort of how influential the Hart family were in the wrestling business. Not only did all the boys become wrestlers, all the girls married them as well, yeah. And it just, Jim Ross is there, and Jim Cornette as well. They're two people who, and Chris Jericho. They're three people that come on and sort of discuss um, events leading up to it and their thoughts. So I'd say they're the three main sort of wrestling people who talk about it.
Yeah, probably.
Later on, we will get to it that D'Lo Brown and the Godfather also come on, but they're not as main. So we'll get to that.
Yeah, I was surprised that Brett wasn't in this, to be honest, and also I was surprised Jeff Jarrett wasn't in this. But if I think Jeff Jarrett is under contract with WWE as a producer, so he probably couldn't appear. I don't really know what Brett's situation is. As I mean, I thought he was under contract to the WWE, but obviously he was at the AEW pay per view and presented the first AEW championship in the first AEW championship match. So I don't really know how all that really works, but yeah, it would have been nice to see Brett on this. I think.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps it was just too much for him. I mean, obviously we don't know. I thought something really sweet that Chris Jericho just say when he sort of first introduces not himself, but why he's sort of there and talking about it. He says he remembers watching Owen Hart as a child, and well, not as a child, as well, when he was younger on TV, and he used to draw pictures of him and Owen together with the tag team champions. And you see this, it flashes up on the screen that one of Chris Jericho's drawings, which I thought was quite sweet.
Yeah. So looking at some of the stuff that Owen was doing, I just thought like Owen was such ahead of his time. Some of the things you see him do in the ring, imagine him getting in the ring with people later down the line like Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko, and people like that. It would have been something really special for the fans. You see Owen Hart doing a backflip off someone else's back, which like at that time would have been like you see maybe like Ricochet do something like that, and you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. But then back then it would have been like, oh my god, like, have you seen what he just did?
Yeah, he definitely was ahead of his time. I mean, everybody commented on the show just about how great he was, and that he could pick things up so quickly, and that it was like he was a natural, and that just his wrestling skills were like second to none, essentially. So it's
so I think this is like Martha's first like not appearance, but I think it's the first time she's done something publicly on like a TV show, talking about Owen, obviously.
Yeah, so Martha, well, Dr. Martha Hart, she says, is Owen's wife, for anyone who doesn't know. And she sort of does the majority of the presenting, I'd say. And so you were saying it's the first time she's...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so she, obviously, I mean, how she got through this and everything, and, it was just amazing. I mean, she says they started dating when they were 15. I think they were married in 1989, I think, from one of the videos on the screen. There was I'm sure there's a timestamp. I could be wrong. But also who appears on the show is Owen Hart, which is their son, and Athena, their daughter, as well.
So Urge is actually named after Owen. Apparently, Martha used to call Owen Urge. Obviously, before they had Urge. A lot of Urges getting thrown around here. I think it's in one of the special DVDs that got released. That it's might have even been in Brett's book. That it was hard for Martha to stop calling Owen Urge because of the son. Yeah.
Yeah. So the sort of the first things you see when Oge comes onto the screen, he starts talking about the memories he has with his dad and how fantastic he was, and how much he loves trains, and that there's a really sweet story of when there used to be a train convention or something come to their local town, and Owen was supposed to be at work, and he cancelled work for the weekend so he could take his son Oge to the train show together. And just sort of, he said, always putting family first. That was something that everybody also said, was that, he was a real family man. And Athena says, although, I mean, I think they said she was 4 when he passed away.
Yeah, she was young, yeah.
Yeah, that she doesn't have a lot of memories, but she always remembers going to the zoo with her dad. So for me, it's just heartbreaking to sit there and listen to these two people just talk about the small memories they have of their father, and just what an exceptional man he seemed to be, an exceptional father. And for him to go in such a unnecessary way, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
Yeah, also, I've recently just read Brett's book, and in the book, it said that Owen kept on trying out to be a fireman. He wanted to leave the wrestling industry, but unfortunately he didn't meet their criteria.
Yeah, which is just shocking. So, as probably most of you already know, but I didn't actually know this, so I'm going to say it anyway. Owen signed with WWF, or WWE now as we know, at 23, and I didn't realise that he'd started off with the blue blazer persona, which then got dropped, and then it became Owen Hart, obviously. and then I didn't realize that they brought that back. So I thought, and until I watched this show, that it was Owen Hart being Owen Hart dropping from dropping from the rafters, not Owen Hart as the Blue Blazer. So that was something that I learned tonight that I had no idea of.
Yeah, something that quite annoyed me watching this was JR saying that they offered Owen gave him a new contract, whereas in
after the Montreal screw job.
Yeah, sorry, after the Montreal screw job, they offered Owen. Well, no, they didn't offer him. Sorry, they gave him a new contract. But in Bret's book, he says that Owen didn't want to be there. He wanted to leave the WWF. And Bret had said to him he could try and get him a job in WCW. And then Vince had rung Bret and said that he was being selfish and shouldn't get Owen involved. And just think if they'd let Owen go, after the screw job like he wanted to, he'd probably still be with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's different to hear different contradicting stories. Obviously, one of Jim Ross and one of Bret Hart.
Yeah, but even Jim Ross, you could tell was like, they just gave him it because of the screw job.
Oh yeah, he says that. He says, I think he says, yeah, that's the reason it was there. We're not gonna lie, it was because of the screw job. We wanted to keep one of the good members of the family, and so here we are. The reason they went back to the Blue Blazer persona was because they didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah.
Which I found just ridiculous. Here you have this amazing technical wrestler who can out wrestle anybody on your roster, and then you're gonna give him such a crap gimmick, I suppose.
Yeah.
But then obviously they do explain that Owen wasn't an actor and he pushed back a lot and he refused to do storylines and that he felt were going to embarrass his family.
Yeah, he didn't want to be in a fair storyline and things like that. Also, I believe when Bret was still with them, it was with the WWF, should we say, they were getting to the Attitude Era, like it was the rise to the Attitude Era, and Bret and Owen weren't really into that kind of stuff. They were more the traditional wrestling, they wanted to have, the good matches, whereas maybe people like Shawn Michaels and Triple H wanted more of an on edge, very adult-based storylines, whereas I don't think Bret and Owen were more, comfortable with that.
Yeah, so after they sort of discuss leading up to the events, that we then start looking at the actual day, the day of the accident, and on his way to the airport, flying out to Kansas. Is it Kansas City?
Yeah.
Yeah. Owen's son goes with him, and he says the last thing Dad said to me was look after your mum, look after your sister. It's I didn't think any more at the time, but now looking back, it was almost just.
Yeah, it's strange how things like that.
Yeah, strange how things that happen. Yeah, absolutely. And then we see the ref who was actually in the ring. Jimmy Cordera. I said that right?
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough. Thanks. So he comes on and discusses his part. We see the Godfather and D'Lo Brown as well. So that those sort of three people, as well as JR, are the ones who sort of go through the day of and sort of how they were feeling or what they saw and what happened. And even the Godfather says on the day he was hanging out with Owen, and he just says things weren't right. I wasn't feeling right. JR says I also had a weird feeling. Owen seemed concerned. He wasn't okay with the stunt. It's just they both sort of, I think, very interesting that they both said something didn't seem right.
Yeah, but I suppose maybe people could just be overthinking things that aren't now.
Perhaps, yeah.
You don't know.
In hindsight, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
True. I guess once something like that does happen, you start to overanalyze everything. But that's a natural instinct.
Oh yeah, it's just natural. Yeah. Also, before we get to the incident, it did show Owen on camera saying, he just wants to make enough money to have a life after wrestling, which is just really sad listening to him say that, and then obviously what happened to him.
Yeah, well, I think it was I think it may have been Martha who said that when the Montreal Screwjob happened, Owen had got in the ring and was like, just leave it, it's fine, it's just one of those things. And she'd said, Bret and Owen had such different views on the wrestling industry, whereas Bret was, all about it. It was his life. It was,
yeah,
he was everything. Whereas for Owen, it was more of a means to an end. It was a job that he went to earn money so he could look after his family.
Yeah, Bret truly wanted to be the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Owen wanted to get his wage and go home to his family.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just
there's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, absolutely, yeah. I think either way you look at it, obviously it's lovely that Bret loves the industry, but obviously I think it's also lovely that Owen did this thing for his family. So
yeah, it's just different people have different mindsets and different goals, and it's totally fine. It's just how different people's brains work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I suppose we should get to the actual incident.
Yeah.
So later on in the show, you find out that when he fell, it was because they'd used the wrong clip on his harness. It was a sailor's clip. So when the weight goes on, the clip opens. That's how he fell. I believe that's how they explained it.
Yeah, they said it was one for use for sailboats, or for sailing. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it was a release clip, so that when there was too much weight, it would release for safety. I think it had a 6 pound pressure on it. 6 pounds. He was a 200 pound or over 200 pound man.
Why was it there? Like, why was it even there?
Yeah, well, it's obvious that the rigging people were not professionals.
Yeah.
Because.
But they did say that they've got this because the woman, Martha had spoke to a woman on the phone and asked about how safe it was, and she said, they've got the best people in LA looking at doing it, and I believe she said.
Yeah. So.
Well, she clearly wasn't right about that.
No, because anybody in their right mind would not have used that clip. And the reason they said that, because obviously they'd done this stunt before and it had been fine, there'd been obviously no issues, and they've been using a different kind of system, and I can't remember what they said it was called, but it made the entrance quite clunky apparently, and he couldn't release himself. Yeah, and so they think that the reason they changed this system was to make it seem less clunky, and he could release himself straight away, and make it look better. But jeopardising safety for looks seems.
And it's like WCW did it, with Sting, and it was never, his was definitely more of a smoother drop, but when he got to the floor, it took him a while to, undo himself, should we say? But who cares?
Safety is everything, isn't it? Yeah. So I think one really emotional part of the obviously there's quite a few, but one that really got me choked up was when the referee, Jimmy, sort of, he remembers the feeling and the being in the ring when it happened, and he says, I just felt this thing brush past me, and then the ropes went, my hand was on the ropes. That just gave me chills on my spine for him to be able to relive that and the feelings that he had. And I think JR said the same thing, that King elbowed him and he just got this flash of blue going down in front of him, and just even.
Yeah, King had elbowed JR and then got straight up into the ring once he'd fallen, hadn't he?
Yeah.
So in Bret's book, Bret says Owen fell on top of the top ropes when he fell down. He fell straight down to the top ropes and then fell back into the ring. When they kind of describe it more in the turnbuckle area, I would have said. So yeah, I mean, it's maybe only a few
feet, isn't it?
A few feet difference. I mean, it's not really important, is it? Because either way, he was probably gonna not survive.
No, well, definitely, the length of the fall, the height, and then to hit the ropes first or the turnbuckle, either or.
Yeah.
That the impact on that is just going to be absolutely devastating. Obviously it was.
And like obviously, like you've heard stories. Well, I've heard stories like since it happened, obviously. I kind of just assumed this happened in the opening match, just because everyone was like, "Oh, this they let the show still go on." So just by me hearing that, I kind of assumed it was like the first thing that happened in the show, kind of, because the show still went on. And when when you kind of hear that, you assume something's happened at the beginning of the show. I didn't realize this was a few matches in.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's one of the worst things is that the show went on. And I think,
I used to think, like I've heard this all the time, and I used to think, well, what were they meant to do? How do you know how to address this situation? Obviously, nothing like this has ever happened before. How did they know what the right thing was to do? Kind of now being a little bit older, watching this, they should have definitely stopped the show. It just made everything feel really sick to me. Especially,
almost like wrestling was more important than somebody's life.
Yeah. And like obviously after he fell, and they must have known there was potentially he wasn't going to live. Surely this was now a crime scene. How can you tamper with a crime scene? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they showed a picture.
Surely Owen's blood was on the mat, so they would have had to clean the blood up.
Yeah, well, there was a picture, and they said, and there was a picture got shown during the thing, and that you could see Owen's blood, and you could see they said that some of the boards had cracked underneath, and there was a dip in the ring, and that the wrestlers had to keep wrestling over the top of this one damaged ring and two with blood on it. And I just think what JR went through as well, in terms that I think it was Kevin Dunn, the producer, or one of the.
Yeah, but obviously, just before we get to that, sorry to cut you off, but the King, Jerry Lawler, had taken Owen to the back, and then ended up coming back onto commentary. It's like what? Like that's just. He just watched this person fall to his death, helped him go to the back, and then he just had to go back onto the commentary desk and act like nothing kind of happened really.
Yeah.
It's just like I said, it's just real sick.
It is, yeah. And then see, JR got told over the headset
by Kevin Dunn.
Yeah, that Owen Hart's dead, and you're back in 10, 9, 8, and then after that, because countdown from 10, JR's on live telly and having to announce someone's
10 seconds
death.
10
seconds to prepare. I mean, I wonder, did Owen's family know at this point?
Well, of course, Vince rings Martha to tell her that there's been a fall, but that's all.
He doesn't say though when he rings her first. So it's a doctor that rings. So my thing is, was Owen actually out of the? How long did it take for him to get to the hospital? You know what I mean? So it's I just for me those two don't coincide. That I'm imagining a trip to the hospital and then a doctor trying to revive somebody is going to take a substantial amount of time.
Yeah.
Not, I imagine, the length of time that there was between the confusion, which obviously there was a lot of confusion. They do say that, like, Chris Jericho says, like, he remembers watching it at home and being really confused, like, what's going on, and there was lots of shots of the crowd, but not of the ring, for obvious reasons. And obviously then there was that promo with Jeff Jarrett, but I imagine that block of time that they did between Owen Hart getting out of the ring and getting to the hospital and to the doctors, for the doctor to then ring Martha and JR making that announcement, they don't coincide. So imagine if she was watching that. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but in my head, those two don't link up.
Yeah, another thing that I was thinking is, did they even tell the live crowd? Because, like, we've been at wrestling before and stuff has happened, and we as the crowd have not known the outcome. We were obviously this is completely storyline, but we were at a Raw taping in Manchester, and there was an angle where Lana came out and said she was pregnant, and then did Bobby Lashley come down and start beating Rusev up, I think, and then at the top of the ramp, she says, "I can't believe he believed I was pregnant," but we in the crowd didn't know that. And then I think 2 weeks later she might have had a match, and you said, and you'd not seen, and you said to me, how can she be wrestling if she's pregnant?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I do remember that.
Yeah, it's like the crowd there sometimes don't know what's going on because they're not told properly.
No, there's no, yeah. So
same with like when we saw the main event takeover with Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Like we didn't know, like we didn't really understand the finish, and could we go? Was anything still going to happen?
Yeah, so I do wonder what they did with the live crowd, because I feel like, especially with the, if I was there with my children and someone had just died, I think I would have to leave.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have stayed there, and I'm not saying anybody who did know and did stay is bad, but just for my own personal thing, did they have that option to know that something horrendous had happened, and or was it just like show must go on and you'll deal with it later? Like, I don't know. Not great on WWE's behalf. Jim Cornette is somebody who in this series is very, very angry about the situation.
Yeah, and he's actually, there's two sides to Jim Cornette, and I think this one showed the nicer side of him, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like the caring part, not the talking BS part that thinks Becky Lynch is an idiot for getting pregnant and all that kind of crap.
Yeah, so he was very, very emotional, and he was saying about as Owen was falling, his last words were "look out," because he was worried about falling on somebody else and hurting somebody else, and just saying like what it was a foolish and unnecessary thing to happen, but those last few words were embodied on what Owen was like as a person, in the fact that even in his impending death, which he must have known was coming, he was still concerned about other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just really just awful. Like this Owen, the Dark Side of the Ring came out 3 weeks ago, and like I was really looking forward to it, and then when it came on, I kind of didn't even want to watch it in a way. That's why it's taken me a few weeks to, want to watch it. Obviously, this podcast will be going up a little bit later, but yeah, it's just awful, and obviously, I couldn't watch WWF, so I didn't really know a lot about Owen. But like recently, since we've been in lockdown, I have watched a lot of, the Hart family stuff, and obviously, like I said, I read Brett's book, and yeah, it's just like wrestling's kind of like, to me, it just feels like everyone's one big family, and it just feels like losing a part of your family, really.
Yeah, it's definitely
like, I feel like wrestlers and wrestling fans, we all come together when something happens, whereas if it happened to some celebrity, other celebrities should we say, I don't think it's kind of the same thing. I think wrestling fans are really loyal, and they'll stand up for the right people at the right times and things.
Yeah, definitely a big, lovely community, aren't they? So,
yeah.
So moving on from going on from the actual accident itself, and so like the aftermath, and Martha, she talks about obviously the phone call that one she had with Vince, and then two, the one she had with the doctor as well, and then she goes on to say about how she saw two paths. So it was like a very clear moment not long after the news that she was given, and she had either a path of destruction or a path of strength and survival. And she was like, I'm gonna go, I need to survive for my kids. And then Oj comes on the screen and talks about when his mum gave him the news, I suppose you could say. It was just before bed. And you see that I can remember being sat at the edge of the bed, and mum saying that dad's passed away or dad's dead, and that they all slept in the bed together that night. And it just to think of a family going through that, just being pregnant myself, just thinks what a sickening thing to go through.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that the kids are on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really surprised me. I didn't think, like, I don't know if I'd want to do that if I was in their shoes. I don't know if I'd want to, talk about that on, TV and.
I guess it's like I think you can look at it in two ways. You either obviously it's too traumatic, you don't want to go on, you don't want to give it any recognition, in a way. But then there's also that maybe that side of like having a bit, not a bit of closure, but like getting it out there and saying like, actually, this is what my dad was. He was an amazing person. We feel this way about the situation, and showing strength.
Oh yeah, I get that, and there's probably part of them that wants him to be proud of them. I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So, Owen's funeral was on May 31st, 1999. There was so many people there. They had to put like screens outside and speakers for everyone to listen. Yeah, you see a lot of the superstars there, and obviously you see all the Hart family obviously there, and it's just amazing how many people that were there really.
Yeah, I think, so I can't remember who was saying that, people were pulling on the side of the road to let the cars pass.
Yeah.
The funeral cars pass and that, because everyone had so much respect for Owen in the town, and that was just so lovely to see. And then, not everybody could fit in the funeral home, so there was thousands of people poured outside. And in Martha's speech, she said she's going to get her day of reckoning. And so then she starts investigating herself the event and the accident. So her and her kids go to the arena themselves, and they actually.
And actually, Brett was with him as well. I think I'm sure he says that in his book, but they don't relive that in this show.
Yeah, they don't put a lot of Brett in here actually. No. I'm imagining that's by choice. So they go up to the arena, they go up to the catwalk, and they actually look down at where he fell. And where
I don't know if I'd want to take my young kids, to the place where their parent died. Especially if the daughter was 4. I don't think that.
She was 4 and he was 7. Or she was at 3 or 4 and he was definitely 7. Yeah, I mean.
But, who knows what the right thing to do is in that situation.
Yeah, I guess as a parent, you go with your gut, don't you, and hope it's the right thing. Martha does say in her gut, when she was up there, she was looking down, she knew that it was negligence. She said that, Owen's a very cautious guy, and I just had this feeling that it was negligence, and I was going to prove it. And obviously that's something that she did. She went to the police, she looked at the reports herself and the evidence. Yeah. And then it starts to go on about how she decides to sue Vince McMahon. And something that I found very interesting was she was suing Vince in Kansas, but Kansas wanted to move it to Connecticut.
No, Vince wanted to move it to Connecticut, I think.
Is that not what I said? What did I say?
You said that. Sorry.
Martha sued Vince in Kansas. But Vince...
you said Kansas wanted to move it to Connecticut.
Okay. So sorry. Martha sued Vince in Kansas, but Vince wanted to move it to Connecticut.
Yeah. And Vince also sues her.
Why does he sue her?
I can't remember. It does get explained in Brett's book, but I don't really understand it. It's just all stupid, really.
Yeah, I don't understand how he's suing her. Obviously, he does. I'm guessing he doesn't win. They never gave that, because we do know that
she won she got money in the end, but
she settled in the end.
She settled in the end, but originally it wasn't about the money. She wanted justice for her husband, but with the Hart family, some of the members working against her,
and just a lack of support, I think she said, from the Hart family.
Then it just did end up becoming about money, because it was just a fight between the Harts. I know. I can't remember what Ellie is she called, and Natalia's mother apparently, well, in Brett's book, says that she had found some papers at the home where I think Martha and Brett had been there to talk to Stu and Helen, I believe Brett's mother's called, about the case, and Elliot found them and faxed the papers over to the McMahons or the McMahon's attorneys or something, and it's just silly. Like they were more bothered about their own pocket. She was more bothered about Jim Neidhart. Keep having a job to go back to and working with Vince, and obviously Diana was married to Bulldog, and they were more concerned on their lifeline of money income than the justice for their brother, or at least that is the way it is made out in Brett's book, which is it's just a bit sad that money kind of like this whole Owen Hart dying ended up revolving around money. It wasn't about Owen's life.
Yeah, and obviously something that gets thrown about a lot is the Hall of Fame and how people believe that Owen deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, which I do understand people believe that, but I feel like Martha and Oj have a really good. They sort of say we don't want him to be recognised by a company who led to his death, and they've found other ways to let his memory live on. So with the Owen Hart Foundation, that sort of keeps his memory going in a way that they want to be in a more positive light. That looks after helps look after single mums and stuff like that, which I think is a lovely thing. But I
it is. I think we should have a different Hall of Fame. To be honest, I don't think there should be a WWE Hall of Fame. There should be a Hall of Fame that isn't based on one company. It should, it should be. I mean, I don't even know how it would work, but I don't think the WWE Hall of Fame is a real Hall of Fame in some ways, just because when you see Donald Trump is in it and Mike Tyson, and obviously they're in the celebrity wing kind of thing, but it's just a bit silly. And obviously when some people can be in it, go in it real soon, other people can't. Like Beth Phoenix going in it so early. Obviously she's deserving of it, but she's a very young woman to go into a Hall of Fame, I do believe. When there's some other people that aren't in it that should be, like China or Victoria. I just as much as I look forward to the Hall of Fame every year, I do think it is a bit, it's not right in some senses as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It is. It can. Yeah. I think when you put someone like Donald Trump next to something like Bret Hart.
Yeah, well, they say, the celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame, but it's like, so he hosted, I think he hosted 2 WrestleManias and then was a part of a WrestleMania 23, obviously, and then he bought Raw, but then sold it back to Vince the next week. Does that really make you deserving to be in that Hall of Fame? I don't think so. It's like, Hugh Jackman punched Dolph Ziggler on an episode of Raw. Does that mean he deserves to go into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
It's just.
It should be on wrestling talent, really, only, should it? Well, not just talent, but yeah.
It should be. I don't know. Maybe. The same wrestlers should have like a wrestlers union or something. It should be, if there was, it should be. People who run this union should get to. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Like the Hall of Fame shouldn't be, because let's face it, WWE Hall of Fame is just down to who Vince McMahon wants there to be in it. It should be more. There's loads of people that have had their hard work lost because of like a few people. So there should be another way for them to,
like an impartial judge, rather than just being manager or the owner, of the company, just saying who he does or doesn't like.
Yeah, it's like Chyna's not in the Hall of Fame because what she later went on to do. But that is completely. I know some people might be saying, "Oh, she's in the Hall of Fame with DX," but that's just a different thing, in it. When you have so many other people do wrong things and they're still part of the company, does it really matter? I know they say, "Oh, well, if you Google China, this will come up," but you could probably Google, maybe 70% of wrestlers, and you would find something bad, just because they're human. Like, no one's perfect. Everyone does, stuff that they're not proud of. There's probably, there's not probably a lot of wrestlers you can't name that's not been arrested once, or,
Especially, I think always, the older wrestlers. There was such drugs and stuff like that going on, and it's
you look at say like Jake the Snake. He's battled addiction all his life, but then he's got himself clean, and now he's in the Hall of Fame. But an 8-year-old kid could still Google Jake the Snake and probably find a video of him doing cocaine or something.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, it's just they want you as the viewer to believe how they're thinking at the time. Sometimes it comes across.
Yeah, definitely.
And they quite want you to forget things that have happened as well. They kind of only want you to remember what they let you remember, maybe.
Yeah.
As well.
As I don't know, this is a legitimate question. Has WWE ever sort of made a statement about Owen Hart and the Hall of Fame or anything like that, or is it just?
No, I don't think so. I think they brought out an Owen Hart DVD. I've not seen it. It might even be on the network, partly, but I've not watched it. But Brett has said it in an interview. I think that it is a pretty crap DVD because obviously Martha won't let certain things be used, and certain people be interviewed for it. So I think even Brett said like the DVDs, the shits. I think he said himself.
Fair enough. I to be honest, I can't blame Martha for wanting to remove herself from the company. And
yeah, I do get that, but then there's all these people that has looked up to Owen, and viewers that have loved him. They don't have the opportunity to still enjoy him because of that.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it.
It's like just because he died doesn't mean to say his legacy shouldn't have died as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I can see what you mean by his legacy.
I mean, I can totally see her point. Like, I'm not saying she's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, his legacy should be able to live on and not have died with him that day in the ring. That's the kind of way I look at it.
Yeah. I think that they believe, or it seems to come across in this, that his legacy was more than just being a wrestler, that he was so much more, and that's what his foundation that they created sort of personifies and shows, is that, yes, he was a wrestler and that was his job, but these sort of show other things of that we thought were great of him.
Yeah.
And that's why we have that.
So yeah, I think we've basically covered everything from the final days of Owen Hart, the dark side of the ring. If you guys haven't seen this, you can check it out on. Well, we just watched it on YouTube, so yeah, you can check it out. It's just on for over 40 minutes. It's definitely worth a watch if you've not seen it. So yeah, a bit of a sad podcast. Normally, it's I'm not saying I've not enjoyed talking about it, but it's not.
It's just a difficult podcast,
yeah.
Isn't it? A difficult thing to talk about because it is such a serious and awful thing that happens. So definitely a different tone of podcast. But as I'm saying, please check out the Dark Side of the Ring. It is a good episode. A lot of the stuff that they do, actually, that series is fantastic. Very eye opening, I think, and it's interesting to see things from a different perspective sometimes.
Yeah, it's nice because it is kind of like an outside perspective. Like I said before, some of these documentaries that WWE do, they just want you to believe history as they tell it.
They like to make it very biased.
You can watch 3 different things about the Monday Night Wars, and you get 3 different answers. You can watch one, and it'll say, "Oh, Stone Cold saved the WWE in the Monday Night Wars." You watch another one, it's Mankind winning the WWF Championship. That turned the tide. He did it, and then now they're saying, "Oh, it was DX turning up in a tank." It's just like, it is a combination of all those things. It is not one thing, but I think they just want you to believe what they're feeling that day, I suppose.
Yeah, very true. So if you did enjoy this video, please give us a comment. Let us know what you thought.
Also, if you have any great Owen Hart memories, put that in the comments. What did you like about him? His accomplishments, favourite match, let us know what you thought of Owen Hart. So yeah, give us a like, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel. And that was everything from the Man Games podcast show of The Man and the Wife.
Taking my part again.
Well, to be honest, I nearly screwed up the ending. I was
Should we try it again?
In my 2K20 mode.
Should we try that
All right,
again?
we'll try it again. So, podcast listeners. So that is all from The Man
and the Wife
podcast today. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you very much.